the interview. Kwabana, I'm going to give the screen to you for your music.
This little interview with it. Oh, well, that's a good start. Matt's disappeared already. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Whining On with Matt Bowden without Matt Bowden. I'm sure he's going to get back in. I presume I'm live. I'm gonna play a little song.
You're live, Lindsay. I'm just dropping out to give you the screen while you're playing some lovely music for everybody.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Great. Okay, so well, most of this year I've been in Portugal, and I was locked down on the docks in Lisbon for several months, and by the River Tejo. I'm going to play a song called "The Lonesome Boatman." So this is dedicated to all the people that are missing their pals during lockdown. The Lonesome Boatman.
Thank you.
Hooray.
Thank you for that musical interlude. All right, let's get you on the right side. There we go. And so I think the last time we did our interview, we reached the millennium. We reached the turn of the last century, right? The last 1,000 years for millennium.
Yeah, well, just about. We were sort of hovering around about 1999, I think. And yes.
Yeah, and I think we started talking about NoFit State. Am I right in thinking that? And we talked a little bit about NoFit State as a circus, but not really your involvement in it.
I think we did. We sort of covered when I was working with them in sort of 1997, and I was doing a circus theatre show. So we did mention that, and
I'm getting a little bit of lag here. If people in the comments are watching, just let me know if it's me or Lindsay. It'd be really helpful. Lindsay, you carry on, mate. If it's me lagging, then I'll attempt to try and sort it out. I suspect as soon as I move my phone, everything's began working again. So, sorry. So, yeah, in 1997, we covered you working with NoFit State. And then did you work with them until the turn of the century? Did you leave them towards the millennium?
No, I did one season with them, and you know, I was pretty busy the last half of the 90s. Things were, you know, Tony Blair was in power. There was a boom on the way.
Were things getting better?
Already happening. Things were getting better. I was living in London, and there was lots of work. I was getting all sorts of gigs. I was working, you know, I was doing shows at the National Theatre, getting all sorts of jobs with various agents, and of course still doing the busking.
And you mentioned Tony Blair was in power. Do you think that part of that boom was the fact that New Labour was there putting money in?
Well, New Labour or Tories in disguise, yeah.
But they brought the private sector in to invest money. But there was money invested, right? Do you feel like there's a difference from the Tories? Because you did work under Tory governments. Did you see more investment in the arts?
Oh, no, quite the opposite. No, there was definitely investment in the arts, for sure. Councils had grants, there was money available, yeah, for sure. And, since the Tories got in, and, well, certainly since the 2008
crash. Yeah.
Crash, there's just been no money at all. There's been hardly done a single council gig.
Well, I suppose we can bring the bad days of post 2008 in later on in the into then. So sort of ends of 1999, things are going well for Kwabana.
Yeah, things are going well, and I've got lots of work. I've got a nice variety of work as well. And so around about this time, I think 1999, I did a big corporate job in Dubai. I've been to Dubai a couple of times. Maybe that was the second time.
The second time.
No, I've been out there before.
Okay.
Well, at the time, it was still, well, the first time I went out there, it was just beginning to kind of expand, and from being a small place in the desert to being the huge hub of it is now. So the second time, when I went out in 1999, it had already sort of expanded quite a lot, and I was doing a massive corporate gig.
Just to look at the camera, because I think you're looking at me at the screen, and we've got this kind of thing. So yeah, that's much better, buddy. Yeah, if you can talk to camera, that'd be great. So
yeah,
you seem like you're quite a radical. You've spent time living in big communities. It's fairly liberal social environments. What's it like for you to go to somewhere like Dubai, which it would at least appear to me, someone who's never been, as being the opposite of that? It's an incredibly socially controlled place from my outside, flawed perspective.
Yeah, but I'm not going as a traveller or tourist. I'm going to do a show. So I'm working. And so the climate is wonderful, lovely, hot weather. I'm in a hotel with a swimming pool when I'm not working, and when I'm working, I'm with lots of mates and, enjoying the work. So I don't really see... obviously I see the other side of Dubai. I mean, Dubai is an incredibly sexist place, probably sexist and racist place.
But as a performer, you're quite shielded from that, I take it.
Yes, I mean, you can be. Of course, you can. If you put a step out of line, then you could get into trouble for sure.
And did you have ethical problems working there? Did it trouble you, or did you manage to separate it and think it's work and I'm going here to do what I'm going to do? Did you believe that by bringing the work there, you can make the place more liberal in the long run? Was there any battle in yourself over that?
Well, I was working with this particular gig was Jaguar cars, so I'm no angel in that respect. Of course, I was conscious of ethical matters, definitely.
Okay, fair enough. And so what came after that then? Was that a life-changing experience? Did that move you in a different direction?
No, not really life-changing. And as I say, I'd been to Dubai before, and it was just a nice, well-paid gig, which I was very grateful to get and enjoyed, because I was out there with a huge bunch of wonderful mates. So around about this time, I did my first opera. I think it was in 1999.
But how does one go into doing opera then? Because you've been doing circus skills, you've been doing lots of touring shows with circus. It doesn't seem like opera is a natural progression.
Glyndebourne Opera is an opera house in, I'd say probably East Sussex, near Lewes. It's I think the owners of this mansion house with the stately grounds decided to build an opera house in their back garden, as you do. And I think this is back in the 30s something, and it's still going. And they were putting on a production of The Bartered Bride, which is an opera by a Czech composer called Schmettner. And this opera has within the story a circus. And so Glyndebourne Opera were looking for some circus performers to be a circus troupe in this opera. So yeah, I mean, this was a whole new experience for me. This really.
And did you go there as a circus troupe, sort of working inside of there, or did you go there and train with the people working in the opera? And did they train you as opera performers who can do circus? If you can't understand what I mean.
We went as separate circus artists, but as the circus troupe. So we became the circus troupe in the opera. So we weren't singing.
But did they form you in movement? Was there some kind of opera skill which was passed to you guys in the training process?
Well, opera singers are notoriously bad at movement. They're singers, and so they walk around the stage very stiffly. I don't think there was much that they would teach us about movement. But so we added a spark of life to the opera house. So that was
and what was the prep like for that then? When you first went there the first day, were the opera singers friendly, happy? Did you guys work together well? Was it one big happy family? Was it two camps, the circus guys and the opera guys?
Well, it was two camps, but everyone was curious and friendly for sure. Yeah.
And how did they work integrating you guys into the piece then?
I think the start of the second act is the arrival of the circus. So we would come in and we'd do our thing, and it would be the circus arriving in town, and then that was the main part we played. I think there was just a few other bits because there's the storyline is not all to do with the circus, but so.
Yeah, you're a feature. You're dressing for this rigid singer, belting things out around the stage.
Yeah.
And what did you do there then? Were you doing your rope work or?
No, not in this one. I was fire juggling, doing handstands and fire juggling mainly, and a few other bits and pieces with, a few routines with other guys that were there. But yeah, so Glyndebourne, it's quite a prestigious place. What people do is they call it the Festival Opera. They also have a touring opera, but the Festival Opera is at their base in this, wonderful stately home. And people will come, and before the opera, they'll have a picnic in the gardens. or maybe in the interval as well, and then they'll go and watch the opera. So it's all.
Wow, and what did you think of the whole production, personally?
Well, this is my first introduction to opera. I mean, this particular opera didn't particularly love the music. It was all right, but I loved our part in it, and the reaction we got was great from the these opera going audiences that had never.
Did they clap and cheer or stand up, standing ovations? What kind of responses do you get?
Yeah, clapping, cheering, laughing at surprisingly laughing at bits. So yeah, that was fun.
Did it feel like a breath of fresh air inside of something which might be quite a formal affair? I imagine opera is quite formal, and it's all quite sedate in terms of the appreciation of it.
Yeah, exactly. I think that was what we gave the show, really. Yeah.
And did it make you an opera lover as you walked out of it?
It certainly gave me an initial awareness, and subsequently I've done other operas. I've done The Bartered Bride again at the Royal Opera House with a different production. And again at Glyndebourne for a revisit. This was a few years later, yeah. Yeah, this is more
did they approach you because they knew? Did they approach you because they knew you'd done it before, or did you seek it out yourself?
It's the same. Yes, it was the same choreographer who did the two operas. So yeah, I've also done a production of Carmen at the Royal Albert Hall, and that did make me fall in love with opera a bit. I do really like the music of Carmen, and that was quite an experience. Yeah.
You're still there. So what did you do in Carmen? I mean, I don't know the play Carmen or the opera Carmen, but I don't know if there was
again it was
circus acts in.
Yeah, again the circus performers were sort of on the fringe of, they were just sort of added extras. I did a fire dance and some acrobatics in that. Yeah.
Okay, great. And was this with the same choreographer? Is this how you've developed this this running amount of gigs within the opera?
No, this was just a different. I think actually someone dropped out and a friend brought me in. I think that's how I got that one.
Fair enough. And are you doing street shows in between this?
Am I doing shows in between?
Yeah, street shows.
Street shows, yeah. So I'm doing street shows all the time. In between everything,
And where are you doing these shows? Because you said you were living in London. So are you doing shows mainly around London at this time?
Yeah, although I'm probably doing more pass-by stuff at this point. I'm probably doing my fiddler on the rope, pass-by on the South Bank.
Okay. So I said, where would you do that? But you answered my question as I asked it.
Yeah. So, Neal Street, the South Bank, Tottenham Court Road, Angel. I used to sort of have my own little pitches because at the time I was putting my rope up directly between trees or lampposts. This is before I was using A-frames.
Did anyone ever give you hassle for that? Because I'd imagine nowadays, yeah?
Yeah, especially in London.
How did you deal with it? But what happened? Who would come and give you hassle?
Well, quite often it would be the police would come and say someone's complained, or they would see me doing it and just not be able to comprehend that that's something that they could allow to happen.
And how would you deal with that?
In different ways. Sometimes I'd be quite angry. And
do you remember any particular instances of it?
Not really. There's been so many that.
So you were saying something.
Okay, no, I tell a lie. I do. I can tell you some. There's a particular time down the South Bank when I was playing outside the Tate Modern. So I had my rope between two lampposts, and I've been playing there for quite a while, several years. And this one time, I think I just started, and a bunch of guys came along. First thing I know, there's a guy who's got a knife, comes up and puts a knife on my rope, and like is threatening to cut the rope.
And when you say a bunch of guys, this isn't a bunch of security guards or policemen. This is a bunch of random people.
So it turns out that they are council workers with a policeman. There's one policeman. I thought they were all policemen. They're all in plain clothes, but I think one of them showed me a badge and they didn't explain otherwise. And they basically said I was trading and without a license, and they were confiscating my kit. I protested prestigiously, and in the event of, I think they were trying to take my violin case away. And
were you on top of the rope at the time? Were you on the ground?
I was trying to take something out of the case, like my violin tuner. No, I'm not. I've got down by now, and one of the guys slammed the case on my thumb, and I had a big cut on my thumb. Anyway, so they were bullies. They were bullies, and
is that like 2001, 2002?
It's probably a bit later. This is probably more like 2005.
Okay, and they came. They were being very aggressive with you, by the sounds of it. I mean, putting a knife to your rope, I assume, while you're on it, and then when you come off, slamming the case shut. This is aggressive, thuggish behaviour.
Right. Well, of course it is. It's thuggish behaviour. It's assault, and did they give up? I started going down proceedings, and then discovered that they weren't policemen, they were council officers, and it was a whole different route I had to go down, and by that time I'd run out of energy for the fights. Yeah.
Did you stay performing? Did they leave you in the end? Did they give up, or did you give up?
Oh, no, they took stuff. They took my equipment.
Wow.
I think they left me. I think they left me my phone, but they took everything else. They took the case with the money in it. They took the rope. So yeah, it was.
I mean, I have to say this is a point of interest because this is my specialist subject. Street trading. We're not street traders.
Yeah.
Street traders is providing a service.
I know.
And so when you provide a service, the served party has to have control over what's happening.
Well, I know.
The audience. And so because the audience has no say over what you're doing.
I told them that.
Sometimes having a legal argument that's reasonable is the worst offence you can ever give a warden or a police officer.
Yeah.
And is that the worst you've had?
I wasn't, but they were listening. And there was 5 of them. There was one of me.
Yeah, mate. But you can't beat them up. You know, you're never going to win if you beat them up, because as soon as you raise your hands or your voice, they've got, you know, thousands more people to call. Are you still with us, Lindsay? Is it me that's cutting out, or you? Anyone in the comments? I know we've got at least 6 people watching now. Can you just let me know whether it's me or Lindsay cutting out? If it's me, I can try and do something about the signal. But if it's Lindsay, obviously I can't do anything about it. He did say his internet goes on and off, so we might be losing him on his internet. That's a possibility. I'm certainly hoping that hasn't happened at this point. I'm hoping it's me. I'm going to refresh the page again, and I'm hoping I'll be back in 2 seconds. I'm hoping that Lindsay is still talking and you can't see me. But let's see. I'm going to refresh the page in 2 seconds. I'll see you in a sec, everybody. I will be back on here in 2 seconds. You don't have to leave. I'll be back, okay? Okay, so hey everyone, I'm fairly certain at this point that it is Lindsay's disconnected. So I'm going to go a little bit more through the stuff that Lindsay was talking about and talk about a little bit of legal stuff. I will be doing, I think, towards Christmas now, because we're booked up all the way through October for interviews. We're booked up all the way through November for interviews. So I think at Christmas, I'll be doing my second interview. And in my second interview, I'm going to talk about my legal battles. I'm going to talk about the protests I had, how I've dealt with people trying to shut me down. And this particular one that Lindsay's just talked about just now, talking about services, was something I found particularly difficult to argue against until I did the research. And that's my advice to everyone: is if you need to check and deal with any council officers, anyone making any claims, look on legislation.gov and look at the actual laws they're quoting. Usually with street trading, it's a bylaw, but bylaws, even though they're local, they'll still be on legislation.gov. And so I've checked this about street trading. And so, as I said before, if you want to double check and verify this, street trading, as described in Black's Legal Dictionary, is providing a service or goods. A goods is obvious. If you're selling CDs, DVDs, any of these things, even if you claim it's on a donation basis, you're on difficult ground to defend yourself. You can do, but you're on difficult ground to do so. But with a service, as I've said before, and I'll repeat it again, I think it's important for everyone who's watching, if you are street performers, to know this. Providing a service means that the served party, your audience, has to have control over what's happening. Now, if the audience comes up to you, if people walk up to you at the beginning and say, juggle these things and I will give you £5, that's a service. You're serving them. But if you stand in the middle of a street and say, I'm going to juggle these things, come watch, that's not a service. You're not serving them. You're performing. You're producing a piece of artwork or whatever kind of medium you're describing. If it's music, if it's juggling, if it's poetry, if it's comedy, if it's oratory or statue, any of these things. It's a piece of artwork you are performing in public. And if people wish to then turn around and recompensate you for it, they're completely entitled to. There's nothing against the law with that. There's no service being provided. There's no license under street trading that you needed. I'm going to take this moment now where everyone's watching to say, everybody, if you can, I've put another video up, which I'd like you to check after this if you can, or tomorrow when you've got time, which is the one, an update, talks about what we're doing in the project. So at the moment now we're doing an Arts Council grant. Hopefully we're going to get that by Christmas. This grant will allow us to pay for a full-time web producer. So hopefully things like this won't happen as much. We'll know what's going on. It won't be a one-man band as much as it is with the interviews. We're going to pay for an editor, and our editor is going to take every interview that we do over the time for when he's paid, and he'll take those interviews, he'll re-edit those interviews, and then he's going to produce those interviews into an 8 to 20 minute short with contemporary footage. And that contemporary footage will then be spliced into the person talking, making this really nice, well-produced, concise piece of footage. The reason I'm telling you all this is, and it's a difficult one, we're on a failed interview at this moment. I'm hoping Lindsay will be back quite soon. He did tell me his internet drops out. That we're going to try and get 10% of our funding application. And our funding application at the moment is for $15,000 to run the entire project for 6 months. So we're trying to, at this moment, get £300 a month through our Patreon. At the moment, we're on £23, I think. So we're a little bit short of that. So if anyone can and has the inclination, I will put in these comments. If you look on Incorrigible Rogue or on Whining On Public Performers or on the Whining On YouTube channel or on the Whining On website, we will have a link to the Patreon if you want to come and support the project. I'm just going to call Lindsay now on the phone, and hopefully I'm going to find out what's going on, and we'll get Lindsay back on quite quickly. Okay, thank you everyone for your patience. We will be back going in 2 seconds, everyone. Hey mate, are you getting back online? Okay, can I get you to disconnect and reconnect? Okay, thank you, pal. So just close the page you're on and then open it again. Okay. All right, nice one, pal. See you in a sec. So one of the problems we have when we're doing the channel within the app I'm using at the moment, oh, look at my hair, looking lovely. One of the issues we have is that when someone disconnects, even if you disconnect, you don't know you're disconnected. And so you can sit there talking, and you've seen a few times when Lindsay disconnected earlier on, I think it's his connection's got the issues, that I'll keep talking, but you don't know whether you're offline or not because your computer's playing your image back to you perfectly. It just pauses the other person. So I think Lindsay, while I was just talking all of this time and we had blue screen for Lindsay, he was talking as well, and he thought he was inside the feed. So I think we've got him back now. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Hey, nice to see you again, buddy.
Hey. Wow,
so we were just talking about you getting shut down at the Tate. Did anything else like that happen to you?
Yeah.
You said it was quite a regular experience.
It's happened so regularly. I would say I when you disappeared, I was rambling on thinking that I was online.
I just said this is the situation you get, you know. I mean, who knows? We might have both been online rambling about different things at the same time. Who knows?
I was rambling on about how how that was a very unfortunate incident where they were really being bully boys. I've only been arrested once, and that was a lot earlier on in my career, back in probably the late 80s, early 90s, and I was arrested in Leicester Square, I think, again in London, taken to Covent Garden Police Station, and
I've seen the cells of Charing Cross on quite a few occasions. Did you find most of the time when you talk with these guys that they were a bit lost when they chatted with you? They come and go like, I don't know why, but I think you shouldn't be doing this. Was this the kind of approach a lot of the time?
No, not back in those days. It was more like they knew what they were, you know, they were the law, they were the long arm of the law, and I was just some street scum that they were going to treat however they wanted.
And what was your and what was your best route out of this then? What was your? You said you lost your temper sometimes. Was that your ideal method of dealing with the situation, or did you develop a tactic for dealing with people when they do these things?
Sometimes I'd just ignore them. Sometimes I'd stay up on the rope and just refuse to acknowledge them.
And did they ever leave? Did they ever give up and go?
I think normally I'd end up talking to them in the end.
And would people gather and watch as you're doing this? What was the viable tactic?
It came to a time when quite often, as soon as I produced my equity card and told them I had public liability insurance, they kind of change their tone, and oh well, actually, well, they didn't quite know how to take that, and quite often that was the ace in the pack, and they'd just walk away and leave me to it.
So do you think the worry was that you were illegitimate, that what you were doing was in some way dangerous, or that you didn't have any body behind you? What do you think the equity card proved to them? What was the difference it made to them in your speculation?
Yeah, I guess it's made them feel that I had some validation to be there. I guess, you know, there was some, I was showing some kind of sign of, you know, responsibility. I suppose if you've got, you know, liability insurance, then you've
yeah, you've got some kind of formal acceptance of your craft by
by
something bigger than just you.
It's certainly not what people would expect of us to have, and so yeah.
Fair enough.
It certainly helped now and again.
And did you find when the security would come that more crowds would gather? Did it push people away in terms of your audience and in terms of people paying you?
Yeah, but you got to remember that I'm not doing circle shows. I've hardly ever been stopped doing a circle show. This is doing pass by.
And do you think it's because you don't have a crowd there that the officers feel a little emboldened by that?
Yeah.
Are you still with us, Lindsay?
Yeah. Have I gone again?
I can hear you. You're back. You're literally, as you said, have I gone again? You came back. So yeah, I think the question I said, I don't know if your answer came through for everyone else watching or not, was do you think they felt emboldened because there wasn't a big crowd of people watching you?
Yeah, quite possibly, and I really can't recall a time where I've been stopped doing a circle show. I'm sure there are times, but I can't recall.
Yeah. And so, has it changed over your time being a performer, the way police, security, council officers deal with you?
Yes, but I don't know how much that I've changed and how much that they've changed.
Well, would you like to define the change first of all?
Well, for a start, I think I'm a lot more confident about what I'm doing and my right to do it. So I start from that place. If I'm approached by anyone, I also have chilled out massively. So my default setting would have been, if approached by a policeman, would have been aggressive, quite possibly, or defensive at least. Whereas now I would be a lot more charming.
And how would you be more charming? Just by being calm? Would you be nice to them? Would you call them sir? How does this
just being polite, friendly, and but also if it gets to it, assertive, and but also I guess accepting that they're doing their job, and so taking the conversation accordingly and not just getting
you fascist pig,
getting up on my high horse just because they think that they're that's their job.
They're people in costumes.
Yeah. Yeah. So you know. Yeah.
So is that the advice you'd give a young busker if they had to deal with that? If they're doing a similar thing, they set rope up, they're doing walk by, and they get approached by people, you'd say be calm, be charming.
Yes. Because at the end of the day, it's not going to help you to not be charming to a point. Obviously that, you know, every situation is different. But yeah, as a starting point, I would say, yeah, be friendly.
I agree. I agree completely.
Yeah.
I think that if you go in there saying F off, the reasonable people in their group aren't going to listen to you. You know, and that's what you need in the end. And so let's steer back from this. I feel like we've got on this subject for quite some time now. And so there's a number of circuses that we were going to talk about. And so we've got Giffords, we've got the Invisible Circus. I was just wondering, between these ones, what's the chronology for that? How do we move forward? How are we going from time? You've done your after work.
So back to sort of 1999, things are going well. We've got the millennium. I'm still in London. And so at this time, I've managed to blag a brilliant park up. Probably the best park up ever.
Can you explain for people who might not know what a park up is?
Okay, a park up is somewhere where you park your living vehicle. It could be the side of the road, it could be a field. But in this case, for me, it was the yard of the circus space, which at the time was one of the best circus facilities in Europe, circus training facilities in Europe. Certainly the best in the country. And they had this big.
How did you blag a space there?
How did I land in?
How did you blag your space? Let's park up, Graf. Come on.
Through friends who were in high positions in the hierarchy of the circus space at the time. So I've been, you know, by this time I'd been doing this for at least 4 or 5 years, parking up, probably mainly in the winter at the circus space in the yard, and then going out on touring, busking in the summers. And so early 2000, I'm in this position. I'm in my truck in the yard at the circus space. So I'd be training.
What was the place like then? Because I'm sure it's changed through time. It definitely sounds like it changed from those early days when people
nowadays it's much more academic than it was back then. I mean, then it was a circus school. They were running degree courses, but also it was a professional training space. So there was lots of professional circus people, and you could.
And what kind of things would you train to do there?
Pretty much anything from flying trapeze to acrobatics to juggling, all kinds of aerial, and they ran.
And was it formal? Was it just loads of guys around having? I say guys in the kind of gender majorative. Was there loads of people there just hanging out, trying, testing stuff, or did you book times? Was it fairly bureaucratic?
There's a bit. So you've got professional training that happens every day between, I don't know, 2 and 5 in the afternoon. So this is where people are hanging out, and there might be some classes going on in between, but basically it's people that come in to do their personal training on their whatever their bit of equipment is, or maybe on several bits of equipment, or they're just coming in to do some conditioning or use the tumble run or something like that. But there's also evening classes going on. There's a whole spectrum of stuff going on, plus a degree courses is happening throughout the day as well. So there's a lot of people going through there. So it's really buzzy. It's a great place to be. I feel really lucky to have been in that, situation where I was living there and I had the world coming to me. So it was great. And so I think early on in 2000, I got a phone call from someone that wanted to come and talk to me.
Lindsay, can I get you to look at the camera again, just so we don't get the shining eyes?
Oh yeah. So this person turned out to be Nell Gifford, who was the founder of Giffords Circus, who sadly is no longer with us. She died last year of cancer. So 20 years ago, she came, and she was just starting Giffords Circus with her husband, Totty Gifford.
And what was she starting?
So she's starting a tenting show. So she's from an early age, she's been in love with the circus and always wanted to start her own circus. And she'd worked for various circuses in America, Circus Flora and Bobby Roberts Circus in Britain, and Roncalli Circus in Europe, and she'd met her husband Totty, who was a landscape gardener, big earthworks mover, dug lakes and things for rich clients, and so he had the money to fund the beginning of the circus, and so they've got this two-pole, you call it a little big top, very little big top. She comes and finds me in London at the circus space and asks me to join the show, which she persuades me that it's, I get sort of intrigued. It sounds very romantic, and the money's not great, but
when you said it sounds very romantic, what sounded romantic?
Just the fact that this husband and wife couple are starting up their own circus from scratch, and
did she have a vision at that point? Did you sell your vision?
Okay, so I mean, there's many reasons why it's more romantic than I ever even imagined, but it became so more than it was then. But it came from this original idea. So you call it a retro chic circus, really. So they had built some wagons, some old sort of retro 1930s style showmen circus wagons that looked great, painted up really nicely. They had these few wagons and a tent. So it was a beginning, and so I did the first show in probably June 2000, and it was a small tour that year.
Was the prep before that? Did you guys work together? Did you guys develop the show together? Did she have a vision and just tell you what to do?
She had a vision of, and it was very traditional. So, and this is the first time I've ever worked with horses. I've never worked in an animal circus, and I never will work in a circus with wild animals. But so I've never worked with horses, but I'm willing to give it a try. I come from a circus background, but and it's marvelous. In circus, and horses and humans go back thousands of years. So I was up for giving that a try.
Like having dogs there.
I'm glad it. Yeah, And so sawdust ring, very, very traditional style. Smiley girls in scantily clad costumes doing the curtain, pulling back the curtains, baring their teeth and the smiles, you know, not the sort of thing I was used to. But anyway, it was fun. And we toured.
How did you guys prepare for it? Did you work for a few months before, getting all the routines, the choreography, the sequences, or did you set piece show yourself?
I think there was a week rehearsal.
And how was that rehearsal? Was there a choreographer? Was it set? Did you do sequence stuff together? Was it like with NoFit State, was a narrative that's trying to be built between all the pieces, or?
No, it was act after act. It was very traditional, very traditional. There'd be a contortionist, then there'd be a strong man, then there'd be a horse act, then there'd be a slack rope walker. You know, I think that show I was the finale, and I had dancing girls underneath the rope doing a jig to my fiddle playing. So yeah.
So the rehearsal really was, by the sounds of it, the rehearsal was just getting the casting call right and the changeovers right. Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, and back in the first 2 years, it was not now one of the top shows of its kind, probably in the world, I'd say. But back then, there was an amateurish, but that was something that gave it. I don't know, gave it a little something, and the audiences just kept coming back. They toured almost exclusively in the Cotswolds, from village green to village green. So it was a very idyllic sort of scene. And the Cotswolds is Middle England, to say the least. So it was well-to-do clientele coming to see the show, and it just grew and grew. So by the third and fourth year, they're already probably onto their third tent. And whereas the first show there was just like 2 rows of chairs round the ring, now there was like banked seating, and it was looking like a proper circus.
And did the tent get bigger, or did just the seating fill out?
The tent got bigger, the seating grew out, and the show developed into what became, rough narrative shows. I think I had a bit of influence on that.
How so? How did you have an influence on that? Were you petitioning for that?
Because that's the background I'd come from. I'd come from New Circus,
that's why you had an influence in that. How did you have an influence in that? Just
by talking to Nell and talking about the differences between our styles. And I think, I influenced her and she influenced me massively as well. So
there was a lot of socializing between, and I'm going to sound like an idiot saying this, after and between the shows, traveling from place to place. There was a lot of social time between you guys where you'd have the opportunity to influence each other.
Yeah. I was just thinking, when I first joined Giffords, I'd been, I was doing a lot of aerial training and just started yoga as well. And probably not a lot of drinking. by the second Giffords tour, I was like drinking red wine, but they'd influenced me a little bit in that way. And yes, there was long nights, long summer nights into the early mornings, drinking red wine and philosophizing over circus. And so they developed, and they expanded, and then after a couple of years, they had a restaurant so people would come and watch the show, and after the show, they would have a meal in the restaurant, and the cast, some of the cast would be there, and they so we'd mingle with the audience, and so there was a lot of socializing. And
did you enjoy the mingle?
I have really enjoyed working with Giffords Circus. Yeah.
But did you enjoy going out of the show and into the restaurant to mingle with the punters, so to say?
Yeah. It was always good to get away from that environment as well and get off and have your own little party. So there'd be lots of little breaking off parties in certain wagons, and then there'd be the end of tour party in the tent in the ring, where the sawdust would fly around, and there'd be sawdust fights and good times. Yeah.
So you're a big family.
Yeah, it felt like that. I mean, they were a sort of a family circus, a husband-wife team, and it was a big thing for them that the circus was their family. So yeah, they made us feel like family.
And how long did you work with those guys for?
So I did the first 5 seasons. So I did
a season is a year.
So from the very first show to the 2004, did 5 years in a row, and then I came back for a year in 2008. Did a show called Caravan with them.
Okay. And how long was you run for?
So I've done 6.
But in one season you do a month, 3 months?
No, 6 months. 5-6 months. It would start in May, end in September. And it's great fun, but it's really hard work.
And so it sounds like you're incredibly busy. You're doing that 6 months a year, and then you've done the opera in that time as well. The opera work comes at the same time.
Yeah, well, the opera was the year before.
So it's 1999 we did the opera, but you do opera in 2003 as well, if I'm right.
Yeah, well then maybe if that's the case, then that would have been in the winter, because I was touring with Giffords in the summer. So it might have been a winter show. But so the Giffords season would go something like this: that you do a rehearsal period of maybe 2-3 weeks, then you go straight on tour, and so. First show, so Thursday, Friday, you do maybe 2 shows. Saturday, Sunday, you do 3 shows. Monday, you do 1 show plus move. So after the show, you take the tent down, move to the next site. Tuesday, you all day is putting the tent up, getting everything in.
And when you put stuff up, I hate to interrupt you, but just saying the tent up, did people get given jobs? Were you trained to do something that was your job the entire run, or did everyone have a knowledge of everything? Or
a bit of both, a bit of everything. If you generally have a job. Some jobs everyone did, other jobs just some people did, other jobs there'd be a crew to do. I think these days it's much more there's a crew to do most of that work, but back then it was everyone would chip in doing everything.
And did they have a training period for that, or did you learn on the job?
No, It's no, you'd learn on the job, because putting a tent up and taking it down is not, it's not something they want to do too often. So you'd learn on the job, and there's people that know how to do it. So you once the tent's up on Tuesday night, then you've got a day off. So Wednesday is your day off. When I say your day off, it's the day that you do all the chores that you didn't have time to do all the rest of the week, like washing your clothes, and if you're lucky, you might get away and go and see some friends. But so
and when you're washing your clothes, do you have washing machines there? Are you doing stuff in a bucket?
I'd usually go to a laundrette. Anyway, so that sequence, then you're back on Thursday, 2 shows. That sequence goes on for 6 months relentlessly, without a stop. So, it's full on. But
yeah. And so you did that till 2005. And then you had a break for 3 years and did it again in 2008.
Yeah.
So what happened in the 3 years gap?
Well, I was by that time I was glad to get away from circus and have a break from it, because it had been great, but I needed to move on, and probably mainly, I went back to the street performing, and so my summers went back to the routine where I do Glastonbury Festival at the beginning of the summer and Edinburgh Festival in August. And that has, apart from the 2008 tour, that has pretty much been my routine and my rhythm to this, well, until last year.
Well, before we touch on the horror that is this year, can you just talk a little bit about what Glastonbury means to you and what Edinburgh means to you? I'm sure we've touched on this in previous interview, but I'd be interested just to hear it again.
Well, Glastonbury does mean a lot to me. If for no other reason, I've been going to Glastonbury since well before I was a performer, and I've been lucky enough to have been booked as a performer since the late 80s to appear in the circus and theatre fields at Glastonbury. And one of the things I started to do when I could, I first did this in the tour with NoFit State in 1997. I would climb up outside the tent, climb up to the top of the tent, and then walk my slack rope between the king poles out on top of the tent.
And are you hooked on here? Have you got anything in terms of keeping you from falling to your death?
No, I'm not hooked on. I am only 1 foot above the actual ridge bar, so potentially, hopefully, if I do fall off, I'm not going to fall. And if I do fall, I'm going to slide down the tent. Potentially, there is a potential that I could fall too fast down the tent and impale myself on a spike at the bottom. And slight risk of death, I suppose. But
and how do you deal with that when you're up there?
So no, it's scary because you're very high, and I don't do high wire. It's not my thing. But I'm very high, but there is a certain amount of a safety net, as it were. The tent being a safety net.
I do a little bit of rope walking myself, and I know that as soon as you put yourself at height, your body acts differently. It doesn't act the same. If I'm low down the rope, I can throw myself around in that rope in ways that my body will not allow me to do when I'm 6, 7, 8 foot high. That must be completely different when you're 80 foot high, something like that. Is that a fair gauge of how high you are? Perhaps even higher.
Maybe 50 foot. It depends on the tent. I mean, I've subsequently done it on many different tents. That's what I was trying to allude to. And I think the highest one I've done would have been the big top at Glastonbury, where I did a show on the stage inside the circus tent, and then climbed up the king pole, out through the hole, through the gap, and then the audience had to come out of the tent, and then I did the walk across. And that would have been 80 foot, and that was scary.
And did you? I mean, it's incredible. I've seen the pictures, incredible pictures, and it's an incredible thing to do. But I'm really interested myself, as someone who's rope walked myself, how your mind is, how your body feels when you're there, and there's what can be at least subconsciously picked up as so much jeopardy.
Just willing yourself to do it and to get on with it. It's scary, it can be scary. Sometimes it's been scary, and sometimes I just want it to be over.
Does your body behave differently?
Other times I'm just feeling it and just going, oh, I've got this, I've really got this, and this is fine. And other times I've not got this, I really like, whoa. So yeah,
and why did you first think to do that? What was the inspiration for going up there and doing that? Because it's you don't have to do that. You could do the show without doing that.
I think the first inspiration was a drunken night at NoFit State Circus, when I said, "Oh, what about this?" I mean, it was probably Barnes that suggested it or something like that. Anyway, I started specialising in doing the tent walks and river walks. I did a lot of walks over various rivers. Not massive rivers, just like little slack rope walks across rivers.
And I know that when you have a slack rope at a different length, it moves and behaves differently. Did you train for the different lengths, or have you done it for so long now that you're competent at any length of the rope? You've got a feel for it.
The longer you do slack rope, the harder it gets. I mean, I know you get these guys now that do the slack lining over massive distances. But slack lining is slightly different.
Well, it's got a bounce to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you're tensioning it up. Slack rope gets increasingly difficult the longer the rope.
Yeah. And so I suppose you train for that. You train with the longer rope, and you practice, and you get those skills before you get wet.
Yeah, and that's why most long high rope walks are actually high wire, because what they do is they've got the wire, and then they have what they call cavalettes, which are guy ropes which come down, which keep the tension on the main rope, and then you've got a tight rope which doesn't move.
Yes, but tight rope, if I'm right in thinking, is because you're a slack rope walker. I was told that tight rope, the slack rope are different disciplines. They're different skills to learn. They're not transferable. They work against each other.
They are you're right to a degree, but you can learn both. I mean, I do tight wire. I'm not a good tight wire walker, but I could be if I practiced it. It's just what you practice, and I don't practice it. So
yeah.
I have done some tight wire, professional tight wire work, but not that much. So also during this period, I did a couple of, again, sell out gigs. Maybe I did a commercial for a company, a financial company, TV advert where the analogy is the tightrope is like a financial tightrope. You're walking the financial tightrope, and hey presto, you fall off, and then I come back. So I've got like pizza boxes which are representing these different financial packages, and they're making me unbalanced, and then I fall off, and then I come back with the one financial package, and steady as shit, and we get across it. And
and how did you find yourself doing this gig? Did you apply for that? Did they come to you?
Yeah, that was well, I think it was an audition, but there wasn't much competition, I'll be honest.
So they were looking for a rope walker, and so you were looking. Where did you find out about this audition? I'm just saying this so if anyone's watching who might try and do this in the future, they can experience.
I would say they probably came to the circus school looking for because where else would they find what they were looking for? I think the only guy that I was up against, I think his comment was that he was too good looking for the job. So, so I got it.
Happy days.
So I've done a couple of adverts, which I'm not that proud of. But
and just out of interest, I know why, but just for the sake of everyone listening, you say selling out. Why do you say that? Why is doing a commercial selling out?
Well, because I'm endorsing a product that I don't believe in.
Okay, you're taking the money to endorse something that you don't necessarily have faith in. Okay, fair enough. You're selling yourself for cash as opposed to belief and intent.
Yeah, and the irony of it is that shortly after I did this advert, I had a really bad run of bad luck. Terrible. I just kept crashing vehicles and getting mugged, and just it was the
insurance company's not very helpful.
and the irony was I ended up in massive debt.
Is that like the gypsy curse? Maybe did you feel bad about it, and then
instant karma? Yeah.
And did you do that a lot of times? Did you after that, and you got the taste for the money? Did you go and search for more advertising work?
I don't know as much as I searched for it, but I was open for it to come along. Especially when I started getting into debt, how debt spirals, and then the more in your debt, the more you're looking for.
Yeah, I know exactly that, buddy. So, how did you find yourself way out of debt? Did you manage to avoid the debt? Is it still chasing you?
No. I did a straw man. I got away. I got away from it. I walked away from it. Cool. Yeah. So
I'm happy you got over it.
Troubling me no longer.
Good. And so there's another name that we have to tick off the box here, which is Invisible Circus. Are they? Is this a long time until we talk about these guys? Is it fairly? Is it right for me to bring it up now?
Yeah. So I've come across the Invisible Circus a few times, but then
first time I suppose we should say, can you describe to people who the Invisible Circus are?
Yeah, well, so I'll just carry on a little bit, and we'll get to the Invisible Circus.
Yeah, by all means, buddy. By all means.
Because about this time, this is I've mentioned the bad luck and the about this time, the circus space are deciding that they don't want people parking up in the yard anymore. They're getting a bit more academic, and it's
All these crusty folk hanging around.
And all the circus folk that used to be high up in the management have now moved on, and now it's all run by arts administrators, and so there's actually no circus people anymore, and so they don't really understand people living in trucks like circus folk do. And so long and short of that is that I move out of the circus space.
So what you said, I think that's quite interesting in terms of dating and the advancement of circus space and circus. Because I don't think that story you're telling of circus space, the movement of arts administrators into it, as opposed to circus folk living in vans and trucks, is just with circus space. I sense that is something which is broader. So maybe having a date on it might be something that's interesting.
Yeah, well, this is shortly after. This is about 2005.
Okay.
2005.
And was it a slow progression? Was it one in, one out, or was it a stark change?
It was fairly definitive when it happened. I mean, it wasn't everyone out at once, but it was. Yeah.
And was it amicable, or was there a sense of resentment to the van folk, the people who were, travellers, the circus folk?
Well, I don't know. I mean, as I say, I'd come back off tour, and I probably didn't know the people so much, and so for me, it wasn't my friends that were kicking me out. It was, things had changed, and so I was ready to move on as well. After, I could be jumping the gun. So this might be more like 2000. It might be a little bit later, 2007, 2008. So I've come off tour with Giffords in 2008, and I parked my truck up on a farm up in the Cotswolds and pretty much moved to Bristol, and that's where I really get to know the Invisible Circus crew, because they're at the time they're a squat circus. They're squatting.
Did you move, just very quickly, did you move for them? Did you move to hang out with those guys? Or did you move to Bristol for a different reason?
No. I'm just Bristol's the nearest place to where my truck is, and it's a city I know well and like to hang out, but they're doing some stuff, and eventually I get involved. I get a phone call from Doug, who's running this squat circus called Invisible Circus, and they've just squatted a cathedral, what they call the Pro Cathedral, up in Clifton, Bristol. So what they're doing, what they sort of started to specialise in, was to squat or semi-squat buildings or sort of, let's say, occupy buildings with the permission of the developers. So there's a company that
security kind of thing.
They own the building there. At some point, they're going to develop it into flats or whatever.
Licensees. They become licensees in the premises.
But that could be a few years down the road. And so the Invisible Circus have got freelance to do what they want in this cathedral. So they put on a show called Ghost Town, which kind of it's like a carnival. There's lots of side shows and side stalls, and the audience come in, and it's
Are you involved in the build-up to this?
No, I just come in and do my show, which is pretty much what I do. Pretty much what I've done for all the Invisible Circus stuff. Yeah, that was a great show.
And so you said that the carnival kind of thing. What?
Sorry?
So you said the carnival kind of thing in this empty church. And so what happens? They're going to demolish it, so it doesn't matter that they use the space. They can paint it. They can do stuff in there, I assume. And then they ticket the event. Or they open doors?
Yeah, it's a show. People are paying to come see it. Yeah, and so yeah, it becomes quite popular, and so I don't know how long they're in there for, but then they have to move out of there, and they get this even bigger place. So they get what was the old police station and fire station, which is all in one complex. It's one huge block right in the centre of Bristol, and so it's the CID headquarters. It's the police headquarters. There's police cells there. There's a fire station there. There's like the fireman's pole, the whole thing.
Oh, great.
And so they've got. So they've got this whole complex and a yard in the middle to put on these great shows. So they start doing shows called Carnival, which become quite well known and popular.
And are you in there for the planning of that? Are you in the group now, so to speak?
No, I'm doing my own thing and just coming in when they.
What was your perception of the group? I'm interested in how they organise and how they do things. And I understand if you just come in and do your thing, you might have limited knowledge of that, but
well, they're quite organised. They've split up into two groups. I think one's called Art Space, Life Space, where they're actively promoting and trying to enliven empty spaces and get work in living spaces and community feelings going. And then the Invisible Circus, which is also very community-based, but a wider community. So when they've got a show coming on, there's a core group of people who are doing all the stage management, by this time they are running it like a proper circus theatre company, and various people are taking on various roles, stage manager, like riggers, and then you've got I guess hardcore performers, and then they're inviting the wider community to come in on events to perform and help out and do the thing. So they're putting on massive events, and people are coming from all over the country to get involved. So it's a very exciting time.
It certainly sounds it. What was your experience of working there, working with them?
Well, it's very very exciting vibe. It's very much a nighttime kind of party feel. There's
When you say
all sorts
party,
of
do you mean like a
stuff
dance
happening.
party?
There's cabaret
party?
rooms. There's yeah, it's like a mini festival. It's like a one-night mini festival, but they put it on over several nights. It would be probably 3 nights of this event, and yeah, it goes ballistic. People love it, and it's so you'd have cabaret rooms, you'd have main events outside, you'd have bands, you'd have freaky, weird things happening in different parts. You'd have people doing characters. You'd have probably walking tours of the cells and like all sorts of Jack the Ripper characters jumping out of you, that sort of thing. Yeah, lots of imaginative stuff going on.
Just for you as an artist, for other artists that watch and would think about being involved in these community alternative kind of squatty kind of events, how does your treatment as an artist differ from working in Dubai to working in an Invisible Circus gig?
How's my treatment as an artist?
Yeah,
I mean, when I'm working in Dubai, I'm still working for people I know, so I'm being treated well. And the same goes. It's not how I'm being treated certainly by the people I'm working with anyway. It's a completely different vibe with the actual scene. So much, it's a much more fun.
I don't know if we've lost Lindsay there. I'm hoping. Are you back?
It's a proper job. Are you working there? I'm still here.
I think I lost you. I don't know if everyone else did. Can we just go through that very quickly again? Just the thing I picked up then is like a proper job, and the thing I was trying to get with the question, the thing I was searching for is that I suspect that working with the Invisible Circus, there might be a bit more impromptu, it might be a bit more collaborative. There'd be a bit more loose around the edges, and that's completely conjecture on my part. Whereas I imagine when you're doing a gig where you're paid a lot of money, that it would be different. And that's the kind of insight I'm really searching for.
It yourself. I mean, it's exactly that. Really, the corporate work is, the work itself. Yeah, it's got to be clean, and there's no improvising. Whereas I would say in a squat circus show, you'd probably get away with the odd swear word and all sorts of things. So yeah, exactly that.
And in the terms of the way when I say treat as an artist, I'd expect in a corporate gig that you're ushered to your spot and there's people managing a lot of stuff you do. Are you cared for in the same manner in these kind of gigs, in the Invisible Circus kind of gigs? Oh.
Well, no, people show same point.
It's a similar kind of experience.
People that space it out probably.
So I'm getting a lot of lag at the moment. I don't know if it's me or you. I can't tell. I got you back again, Lindsay. Are you? Am I lagging for you right now?
Yeah.
Once again, anyone watching the comments, guys, if you can just post up, say if my connection's strong, you can see me clearly. Lindsay's having issues. Can you just put that in the comments for her?
Yeah. I've still got one.
So I'm going to connect and reconnect, and I'm hoping that Lindsay will be clear and it's the me's having problems. I'll see you back in a sec, everybody. No, it's Lindsay again. Okay, that's fair enough. Oh, hello. You back with us?
Can I get the comments?
There's a couple of comments, but not many at the moment. So I think you're back. Can you hear me?
Playful. Are you? So, okay, I'm going to read.
That's the message I sent you. Oh, you're back. So, can you see me? Can you see me clearly? Can you hear me?
I can see you.
I think you're back. I was going to say reconnect, but I can see you here. Yeah, I can hear you better. So, it's been a faultless show, everybody. So, when we talk about the Invisible Circus and the squat kind of scene, it seems like something that's really you've worked with a lot through the time. You did the work on the island. You travelled across with the circus, going all the way across Europe, which was a kind of trucked, squatty kind of circus. You worked again with the Invisible Circus.
Yeah,
you seem like you're quite drawn to working to these alternative, underground, some might say, activist-esque kind of circuses. Do you see that there's something there that you don't get through the mainstream stuff, something like Giffords?
Well, I suppose it's the spontaneity of it, and I mean, certainly with a lot of the invisible stuff, there were sort of one-off shows. So I'd just be coming in. I'd still be doing my own thing, but I'd just be coming in and doing a weekend, for instance.
But the event itself was spontaneous, and all the things going around seemed to have a different vibe to them, right?
Well, I mean, there were events that I'd be drawn to, even if I wasn't performing, because they were great events, and they were attracting hundreds of people, even thousands of people, and yeah, it's great. So but I suppose I am, drawn to that sort of anarchic side of life of living, for sure.
And so what came after working with Invisible Circus? Did you work for them for many years? Did you do a few events with them?
Well, so a week ago on Sunday, I did my first gig of 2020 in Bristol, and that was actually the Invisible Circus. It was through the Invisible Circus, So it was a cabaret show produced by the Invisible Circus with I think five different acts to a socially distanced, in inverted commas, audience, like 6 to a table, but the tables were pretty close together, and I don't know. So
how was that? Was that similar to a normal gig? Is it changed? COVID's?
it was absolutely fantastic to be back in front of live audiences, and the audience loved it. We all loved it. It was absolutely fabulous. Yeah, miss it so much.
And it does feel like I've done a couple of shows in Covent Garden at this time, and it feels like the audiences really appreciate to see something now because we've been so deprived for so long.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been doing a lot of, well, I say a lot. I've been doing some pass by, rope walking, playing the fiddle, and it's been going great. People.
You were doing that in Europe before you came over, right?
I was locked down in Portugal. I was locked down in Lisbon for 3.5 months. I couldn't do any shows, so I couldn't do any busking. And then I started doing the odd bit of busking, and it was okay. But by this time, this was kind of getting on to midsummer. It was getting very, very hot. There's no tourists, and the locals don't have any money. So it was a bit of a struggle, but it was also a great experience. So I got back to Britain at the end of July. Did a bit of busking in August, which was good. And funnily enough, it was going quite well right up to when Boris brought in the 6 people meeting at once rule, and that, for some reason, that seems to have just killed it.
Yeah. Well, I can empathise. I saw a dramatic drop in the people going to Covent Garden since then. Something I'm interested in here, just to steer away from the doom a little bit, is that you've worked the street your entire performing life.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they tend to start working in circus and then they'll leave the street behind, or they'll try and move from the street because, I don't know why. I mean, I love the street. And I'm interested in why you've stayed on the street and why you've stayed working on the street, despite the fact that you've worked in some of the big circuses and you've worked in great, amazing projects. The streets run through that the entire time. And it sounds diminutive, but it's definitely not when I say why.
Sure. I mean, and I guess there's lots of reasons. Possibly the main one is that I am my own boss, and literally I can decide when and where I go to work. So if I feel like going to Scotland, I can just drive up to Scotland and get my kit out in Glasgow and do a show, and that, hopefully that pays for the trip. And so it's a great lifestyle in that sense. Also, I really love the spontaneity, the immediacy of it. So I love the fact that you're playing to people that wouldn't necessarily see you otherwise. They're people that wouldn't go to the theatre, they wouldn't go to the circus, and they're only seeing you because you're out on the street. And so, I love the fact that I'm taking the show to people that wouldn't otherwise see that genre of performance. So I think they're the two main reasons. And there's also something quite
the reasons I
addictive
share,
about
I
it.
completely get them.
You know, that when you just got the audience, when it's all going well and the audience is with you, and there's nothing like that feeling. So it's also very therapeutic, I'd say, because it's not always easy. In fact, it can often be very hard. You've got to motivate yourself. You've got to get yourself through the hard times. You've got to stay fit. You've got to keep your skills up. You've got to go, and sometimes, you know, if you need the money, you've got to go out when you don't want to go out. Sometimes you've got to go out in all sorts of weather. So it's tough. But also that can be quite therapeutic because it's quite character building.
In terms of the character building, do you ever feel like, in terms of the love of the audience, that, I mean, I find that personally, it can be heartbreaking when you have a hard day where people don't pay attention to you, or...
It's heartbreaking. It's soul destroying sometimes. Absolutely. When you've absolutely put everything you've got into trying to do the best you can, and it fails, it totally fails, and you feel, and people walk away, or even sometimes, you know, they look like they're enjoying it, they have enjoyed it, but they don't pay you, you know, and that can be heartbreaking as well, you know.
Because you can understand that some people can't afford to pay, but sometimes people just choose not to pay.
Exactly, yeah. So, I mean, you know, you can always understand that there's some people that haven't got any money, and but you know sometimes that that's not what it was. That it was just that they couldn't be bothered, or they just, or, you know, what was it? You were, you know, was it you? You know.
How did you deal with that?
Usually you go home and you start again the next day. You try not to give yourself a hard time. You realise that it's not, you know, even if it was you, that, you know, sometimes you have you know, everyone has a bad day, and quite often it isn't you, it's just the situation. You know, quite often it's not even the audience. It might just be the wrong situation, like things.
The wrong day, time, the wrong newspaper article.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, people have the whole world is what do you call it? Collective consciousness, and they're all just collectively feeling stingy or whatever it is.
I used to talk to cab drivers about this, and cab drivers confirmed this to me as well. Look, a load of buses have said the same thing, that it feels like some days there's like an email that's gone out to everybody. Today, we're all going to treat each other like shit. It's just, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to be grumpy with each other. And, you know, I'd think it was just me, and it was just in my head. And it's the fact that I'm the grumpy person that day, and everyone's being nice. You're walking around. But people have confirmed it to me on the same days. They've said, yep, today was that day. So maybe.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. And for sure, I think that's from what I've observed over the years, that's definitely a thing. Yeah.
So, Lindsay, I feel like we're reaching the 2-hour point of the interview. So any last points you want to go through? Is there things we've missed out that you want to put into the interview?
I think we've sort of covered it all, really. I've talked about Giffords, which was a major part of my life ever since I started, and I highly recommend anyone to go and see Giffords Circus when it's possible again, of course. And hopefully I'll see you all up in Edinburgh. Hopefully,
next year. Yeah. Any words for young'uns beginning? You've led a long life in performance. Any words for the youngians?
Follow your heart, really. Yeah, and keep trying. Yeah.
So, Lindsay, you played out the last interview with a song, and I know you began with this. Would it be too much to ask you to play out this interview with a song at the end again?
Yeah, I could do that. Okay, well, I just have to...
So I'll just say a last thing to everyone here.
Yeah,
you saw what we got to do. I'm going to talk to everyone here just for the last moment. Yeah. So everyone has been watching. Thanks again for watching. Thank you for watching Lindsay's story. Check out again the post I put up for the Whining On update. It will go through all the things we've done so far, the things we're going to do, the plans we have for the future. It also has at the bottom of that video
you've gone again.
The next month of Whining On. So have the full listing up. You're still there, don't worry. All the people are going to have coming up in November. If anyone can become a patron, please do. At the moment, we're going through an Arts Council funding application so that we can have a professional website kind of guy working the internet who will be producing these videos so that we have a much smoother guide through it. We're going to have an editor who's going to be editing all the videos. So if you can become a patron, £1, £2, £3, £4, £5 a month is enough to make the channel fly. Please do if you can. Are you ready, buddy?
I'm ready.
Oh, well, once again, everyone, thank you for Whining On. I hope you all have a lovely evening, and I'm going to leave you with Lindsay for the final song of this interview.
Okay, there must be some kind of way out here.